Hey everyone, today I am in the Bend, Oregon area, Central Oregon, and Deschutes National Forest, and I'm going to show you the Skene Ogden Trail, which in my opinion is a very underrated trail. It follows Paulina Creek all the way up to the caldera of the Newberry Volcano, and we're actually in the Newberry National Volcanic Monument. I think that's it. Hopefully I didn't butcher it, but it's beautiful here. There's mountain streams, there's waterfalls, there's volcanic rock, and there's a caldera and a big lake when we get to the end. It's about 9 miles from the start of the trail to the end of the trail, 18 miles round trip, a little bit of climbing. I'll talk about all the stats for the hike, the distances, parking. You can make it a shorter hike too, depending on where you go in. I'll talk about all of those options on my website, HikingGuy.com. So check that out. There's a link to the guide right under the video if you're on YouTube, but all the logistical stuff will be in there. Otherwise, in this video, I'll just show you what it's like to do the hike and show you some of the highlights of it. Now, thank you for everyone who supports this channel. I could not do these guys without you, so I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. And if you want to say thank you for the video, just give that little thumbs up, a click, and it's an easy way to do it. All right, guys, let me show you this trail. It's a beautiful one. I'm excited for you to see it. Let's boogie. All right, so from the Ogden Group Campground, you're going to see the trailhead right here. Paulina Lake, 9 miles, give or take, but there's the creek, Paulina Creek, named after the Paiute chief, Chief Paulina. Kind of a tragic story. I'll put a link to that on the website, but we're just going to go across the bridge here, and you can see the trail is relatively easy to follow. We're generally going to be following the stream all the way up until we get to its source at the caldera. Now you can see it's pretty tame at this point. There are way more waterfalls as we get farther up, but it's still beautiful as we go through all the pines here. And as you go up too, you're going to notice there's probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 different sort of sub-habitats of pines. You can see all the volcanic rock. This is a good place to see it down here. There's pumice and basalt. Really, really cool. And about a mile in, we're going to cross back over the creek over here onto the left bank. And at this point, we're going to be on the left bank all the way until the end. That was the only section on the right bank over there. You can see we're climbing up a little bit. We're not always right on the creek. We're usually about this far away from it, but you can always generally hear the creek as you go north here. Now, as we go, you're going to see a lot of these little side trails that either go down to the creek or go over to viewpoints. They're definitely worth a look. You can see there's a waterfall in the distance there that you probably wouldn't see if you were just cruising up the trail with headphones on. And then obviously when you're done, you're just going to go back onto the trail, but you can get an idea. We're basically going up straight along here. Now this is McKay Crossing Falls. This is one of the bigger waterfalls here on the Skene Ogden Trail. And right past this is the campground, which we'll see in a second. Once you pass the falls, if you look down to the right there, you'll see in the distance some of the campsites, and you can drive into this campground. This is also an alternate place to start the hike. If you want to make it a 12-mile round trip, you can just come here and start from McKay. Named after McKay Butte, which is up to the left. There's also a toilet in there if you have to go, but we're just going to follow the trail all the way around until we get to the road, and the trail continues on the other side. You can see it straight ahead of us there, and there's a nice sign here to tell us that we are in the right place, the Skene Ogden Trail. Now from here you can see the trees change a little bit as we go up in elevation. They're a little bit bigger. The lodgepole pines. Occasionally you'll see a ponderosa pine as we go up here. And you can see we're still following the creek up along the way here. Through there you can see Paulina Peak, which is just under 8,000 feet. That's up by the caldera. That's the highest point here on the volcano, on the Newberry Volcano. And we're going to continue on. You can see all the trees got much smaller. This is all newer growth. I don't know, probably 10 to 20 years old. And it looks like there was some sort of a devastation with the pine beetles, I think they're called, came through here. But you can see the older growth forest continues straight up ahead there, which is where we're heading next. And again, more waterfalls. I mean, there's a waterfall on this trail every 5 10 minutes probably as we go up here. Some of them small, some of them bigger, more spectacular. But here you can see we've re-entered this older growth forest on sort of the second half of the trail, probably about halfway through here. Now sometimes the trail ends and it goes up. There'll be a couple switchbacks up to the left where we do a little section of climbing. None of the climbing is that tough, but you can see you can come down to the creek and fill up with water if you'd like to. You gotta have to filter it here. But the nice thing is you don't have to carry much water on this hike because there are plenty of places where you can fill up. And here you can see we're climbing. This is one of those sections where we go up. None of these sections are really long and they're not particularly steep. A little bit steeper than going up directly on the creek, but again, nothing too crazy and nothing that compares to any sort of big mountain climb. And as we go up, you're going to see the creek down in the gorge at certain parts, probably about 100 feet or so below you. And you can always hear it as you go along here, but again, this part of the forest, as we go up, it's changing a little bit. The trees are getting a little bit bigger. The lodge poles, the ponderosas are getting a little bit bigger. And because we're going up a little bit, more aggressively here, there's more waterfalls, which you can see down below. You might get bored of waterfalls after this. There's so many waterfalls. Now on this one, the trail goes up there. This is one of my favorite ones, this double waterfall here, the split waterfall. And you can see it's flowing pretty well here. This is in June. And these will freeze over in the winter, and this whole trail will be covered in snow and ice for a lot of the year. So go to the website. I'll tell you all about how to check for whether it's open or not. As we climb up, more of these trees, which I think were attacked by the beetles here. Great work by the trail crews, which keep this trail clear. I can imagine there's a lot of tree falls at the end of each year. Another waterfall as we continue up. Now at this junction, there's a little side trail that goes off to the right over there that goes over to the road. We're going to stay on the trail here. And the road does parallel this. It's a dirt road. Definitely not as nice as the trail. You can see more waterfalls as we go up. This is the video of 100 waterfalls. I've never counted all the falls on this, but there are a lot. And you can see here as we climb up all the basalt, pumice as we go here, all these volcanic cliffs along Paulina Creek. Now we're going to continue to climb. You can kind of get an idea of the gradient from these shots. It's not too bad as we climb up here, and you can see the creek gets closer in certain spots. Now this is one of the trickier spots. There's a ton of these Forest Service roads in Deschutes National Forest. Here we just kind of get spit out into it. We're just going to bear to the left and then look to the right for the trail to continue. That's really the only confusing part on this trail. But once you clear that, it's pretty straight ahead, pretty straight away. And look at that, another waterfall. Who knew? Now this part towards the end is up on the high cliffs. You can see Paulina Creek, or Paulina Peak up there, sorry. Paulina Creek and the peak as we go up here. And you can see we're up in the treetops as we climb up here. About 100 feet up from the creek as it goes through this gorge that it's carved out of the volcanic rock. Really, really pretty. Now, towards the end, about 8 miles in, you'll see the forest changes a bit. Again, it's an area I think that was attacked by the beetles. A lot of dead trees on the ground and a little bit of a surreal experience. And when you come to the split, the trail goes straight, but we're going to go down to the right here to a really nice viewpoint for Paulina Falls, which is right here. There's a little viewing platform, and there's actually a equivalent of this on the other side that you can hit with your car if you come up here. But this one obviously has less people because you have to hike into it. But there's the double falls, 80-foot falls. Paulina Falls, really beautiful. And when we're done here, we're just going to head back to the trail and continue on. And at this point, we're almost done. There's just a little bit of trail through the forest here. And eventually we're going to come out at the end of the trailhead, roughly 9 miles in, And here's the other end of the Skene Ogden Trail. And if you're going back, we're just going to go back the way we came here. You can see there's an intersection with the Crater Rim Trail, which is another one. That's nice. It was actually covered in snow on this day, otherwise I would have done it. But if you come out here, you can view Paulina Lake right here, which is one of the two lakes up in the caldera, the other one being East Lake, and check it all out. And if you want to explore some more, there's actually a restaurant that's open occasionally to the left, and to the right there's a visitor center. And I do recommend maybe driving around here with your car and checking out some of the sites. They really are spectacular. If you stick around a second, I'll show you what this looks like on a map. All right, so this is the hike. It's an out and back maneuver from the Ogden Group campground here all the way up to the caldera. If I go out a little bit, you can see the two lakes as part of the caldera. Here's the cinder cone of Newberry Volcano, and this is the big obsidian flow, which I just mentioned. I recommend hitting this with your car. You can drive up here. There's a nice little beach on East Lake. There's a hot spring over here, really worth exploring. There's also hikes you can do in here. But to get back to this hike, pretty straightforward, not a lot of twists and turns. We go over the creek, and then we're following the creek up. Now, I mentioned there was a dirt road that parallels this. This is it. And if you're doing this on a mountain bike, you can only go uphill on the Skene Ogden, but you generally will come downhill on this dirt road right here. Not a lot to tell you in terms of twists and turns. We're going to come to McKay right here, which is the other campground. And if you're coming in, you're going to drive down one of these dirt roads to McKay. I'm going to keep going up. You can get a little idea of the elevation change here as it goes up, but here you can see the creek. Following it all the way up, I marked some of the good waterfall views in the GPX file. If you have it, you can check those out. Here we go. Here's where the gorge is. I mentioned we were up in the treetops. It was about 100 feet below, so we've done some climbing. We're following up Paulina Creek on the gorge. Here's the falls right here, and then here we are up at the lake. This is a little resort over here where you can rent cabins, and there's a restaurant, not always open, but sometimes is. Here's the visitor center, and then here's a parking lot with a bathroom over there. So that's the hike, guys, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the YouTube comments, and I will do my best to answer them. And otherwise, I will see you out on the trails.